Actually, it's a pretty fun read.
No, she did not.
I hate going to the loop, man.
Long-term financial stability and municipal finance. Let me know what you think.
320 something?
I just figured it.
It was like 5:30
It
by the
sounds
time I
like
got my
for
boss
this
to his
budget
house in
season.
Bartlett.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, helpful.
I don't know. Let me know what you think.
It's a rough one. He's like, I don't gotta wait home. I just got in from Florida. I'm like, I can give you a ride, yeah.
Got the meeting on here and I didn't silence it.
Oh, you know what? They're probably having the theater upstairs tonight.
I would. Station.
Well, better safe than sorry, man.
Yeah. Ready? I don't have anybody to take minutes tonight, okay? So we'll just use the tape. I'd like to call the special committee of the whole meeting for November 18th, 2025 to order. First item on our agenda is roll call. You want to start up? Robin? She's not here.
No.
Clancy? Here. Beck?
Here.
Malay?
Here.
Malone? Here. Solfa?
Here.
Wolf? Here. Lehman?
Here.
Lohman?
Here.
Pieper?
Here.
Fehrenbach?
Here.
Anderson is not here. Brown?
Round.
What am I thinking? Yeah, that's true.
It's a brown colored name.
Barron.
Here.
I didn't see you were up there yet, Jen. All right, thank you. We have the necessary quorum to conduct business. Reminder tonight, if you come up to address us, go to the podium and the little mic will turn green so we know that you're being recorded and broadcast. Up next is item 3, which is approval of minutes. Anybody have any corrections or anything on those? Or we don't even have any listed on there. Okay. Items to be removed, added, or changed, anything?
No.
Okay. And then matters from the public for things that are not on our agenda tonight. Is anybody here for something not on the agenda? Okay. We'll move then to the regular agenda, 2026 budget public hearing. So do we have to wait?
You're gonna wait 2 more minutes.
7:05?
It was published at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock? Okay. Okay, then we can open the public hearing on the 2026 budget. Laura, you want to start us off?
Yes, I am really excited to see members of the public here tonight for the public hearing on our budget. For many years, we don't have any people who show up from the public to share their comments and or concerns with us. So thank you very much for attending. I just want to briefly run through the presentation that we did about 2 weeks ago, not in as much detail, but just to kind of cover the important highlights of the 2026 budget. All of our budgets have these strategic objectives in mind to maintain and improve our police, fire, and municipal services. They address the changes that we see in labor and material costs. They support the long-term growth and infrastructure needs of our community, and they are guided by the 2024-2028 Strategic Action Plan that was created with a significant amount of community input. We strive for service excellence, and we are kind of bearing the brunt of inflation impacts. And what we're seeing is a demand for services with the rising population growth that we've seen. We have added 3 new subdivisions here in the last few years. We are having higher inflation impacts, which affect our operations, staffing, materials costs, severely escalating construction costs that are related to infrastructure. And then also property tax and utility rate increases will be required in order to sustain our service levels. Primary amongst the expenditures that the increase to revenues will cover are some key staffing investments. First, our 2 police officers. This will address needs for community engagement and the numerous calls we get every year from members of our community asking for additional traffic enforcement. This addition of 2 police officers only gets us to the staffing levels that we had back in 2008. And with all of the numerous additions to our community that we have seen since then, it's really been a testament to the department that they have been able to keep up, given the staffing levels that they have had. And then also an additional 2 firefighters. As part of last year's budget, 1 firefighter position was approved. Last year, we conducted a manning study that showed that the future needs of the community will require us to add an additional 12 firefighters, but that this should be done incrementally. And there being 3 different shifts in our fire department, adding these 2 firefighters means that we will have an additional firefighter on each shift, which will allow the transition of our squad emergency response, which follows on all ambulance calls, to move from basic life support to advanced life support, a very significant improvement in our ability to respond to critical medical emergencies in the community. In addition, there are 2 management analysts, one which will be shared by our public safety organizations of police and fire. Primary amongst the responsibilities of those individuals will be to assist the departments in achieving accreditation, and also a human resources management analyst that will allow them to pursue the objectives for their department, which are part of our strategic plan. In addition, earlier this year, a space needs analysis was conducted for our police department and determined that a new facility would be needed to meet the demands of a current and modern police department. And we are proposing with this budget a 0.5% home rule sales tax increase in order to begin saving for that facility. We haven't identified what the exact budget for that facility is. It's very dependent upon whether the city has the opportunity to purchase an existing building and have an adaptive reuse of that, or whether we'll be building on a greenfield piece of property. It's also dependent upon the choices that we will make in determining, which attributes of a police department will be selected from those which are identified as absolute needs in the facility to those things which, as we look forward 30 years, that would be the ideal police department facility for our organization. So many choices need to be made in order to determine exactly what needs to be set aside in order to fund the construction of that facility. But beginning to save now means that we will have funds to put down on that cost of that construction that will reduce the amount that the city has to borrow, and also the interest that the city will have to pay in order to service that debt. So the property tax rate increases that are being proposed are a 10-cent increase to the rate this year and a 10-cent increase to the rate next year per $100 of EAV. So that would bring our 2026 rate to 86 cents and our 2027 rate to 96 cents. The effect on the 2026 tax bill for a $400,000 home would be about $125 per year or $10.42 per month. As will be seen on the next slides, this remains near average for similar Chicago area cities. This is a history of the property tax rate here in Batavia from the tax years 2004 through 2024. 2004, the rate was 55 cents, and all the time since then to 2024, it has only increased to 76 cents. This is our tax rate in comparison to other similarly situated Chicagoland municipalities with, in some cases, the fire district added in order to compare apples to apples, since the city of Batavia has its own fire department. And as you can see, the 96-cent rate that would be in 2027 would put us, right near the median of the rates that you see listed up there. Utility rate adjustments were approved at last night's city council meeting. So the philosophy of this budget has been fiscal stewardship and the long-term success of our community, trying to fulfill those objectives which are outlined in the strategic plan for the city from 2024 to 2028. Planning supports growth, the safety that people value in this community, and also excellence in service delivery that have become the expectation in our town. We also want to have our reserves there in order to avoid debt and then also future cost spikes, but also to serve as a fund that can be accessed in the case of potential economic downturn. It also funds community-driven priorities and guides our spending, and we want Batavia to remain positioned as a strong, vibrant, and importantly, an efficient community as well. We want to use each dollar in this budget to its maximum potential. So, we could take a different approach. Instead of funding the future plans identified in our strategic plan, we could take an austerity approach that would be focused on cost containment, no new taxes or fees. In the short term, it would serve as, we'd have to establish service reductions, because right now we have a structural deficit and our revenues are not meeting our current expenditures. But the long-term risk would be higher future costs. When we defer spending on needed resources today, those resources are only going to cost more in the future. And it's a messaging frame that says, we're going to live within our means. The budget that we have proposed has a philosophy of investment spending. We think that the city of Batavia right now is on the precipice of some very positive growth and change. Its focus is strategic to spend where it will have maximum impact and increase our ability to achieve those objectives that are laid out in our strategic plan. In order to do so, we're including some new revenue sources. In the short term, it results in our ability to enhance our services to the community and also preserve the high level of quality of the services that we provide to the community. But, it does have higher near-term costs. but it's long-term savings, again, because we're not deferring costs out into the future. And the messaging frame is that we are investing to meet our needs and to avoid decline in the future. So something else that I wanted to take a look at was directly in the budget itself. See if I can find. So I noted in the presentation that it is a two-step process in order to get us to a balanced budget. And so the second column from the left here, total revenues less expenditures, is about 1.2 million. This is the amount that we expect to use from our reserves in the 2025 budget. Originally, we had planned to use 2 million. However, with the not having those 6 positions that we had to pull out of the budget last year, there were several projects that we weren't able to get to. And so the reserves that we're going to have to use this year to balance the budget is only 1.2 million. Even with the 10-cent increase to the property tax rate baked in for the 2026 budget, represented in the last column, we will still be utilizing 1.9 million of reserves, which is why we're going to take a similar measure next year in terms of increase to the property tax rate. And we hope after taking those next 2 steps, in addition to the growth of our community, both through an increase in the value of existing homes, as well as the addition of new homes that are being built in our community. And then the third leg of the increased revenue from some, major sales tax organizations. We have one dispensary that is anticipated to open shortly, and then also the Tesla car dealership, which is also scheduled to open. And we have another dispensary that is perhaps interested in coming to our community. But those things aren't here yet, and we cannot count on those. But it is hoped that by the 2028 budget, we are no longer relying on our reserves in order to balance the budget, and that we can then utilize those reserves to use for one-time spending in order to not have to borrow and have interest on those types of purchases. And then also in order to maintain our financial strength of having very healthy reserves. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Questions? Anybody?
Yes.
This isn't really a question, and it's just me asking one of my clarifying statements. But so if I'm understanding you correctly, with the proposed budget right now, we are still using reserves.
Yes.
This year and next year.
Yes.
And then even with the property tax increase planned for this year and next year, even with that increase, but hopefully with these other sales, that revenue growth, then by 2028, hopefully then we will no longer rely on reserves. And that's how I was understanding. Okay.
Fehrenbach?
Just to add on to what was asked previously, and then once we're out of having to use reserves, then we move into potentially funding the new police station, correct? And that's going to be funded with the new bond offering?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Because we will not have achieved enough savings from the additional sales tax in order to fund the entire construction. And we may utilize some amount of these reserves to reduce the amount that we need to borrow.
The other question I have, not necessarily a popular question, but I know people are thinking it because a couple people did ask me already. I think the ask and the need for the 2 additional policemen and the 2 additional firemen, yeah, I think that's pretty well established. But when we talk about the 2 additional analysts, there we go. That's probably part of the question is, why can't we just hire 1 this year, see if it fills the need? And if there really is a need for a second one, then go ahead and do a second one. Why is there an immediate need for 2?
And that's why we decided that we were going to share them between, we sort of pared it down instead of hiring 1 management analyst for the police department and 1 management analyst for the fire department, because there really is enough work for 2 management analysts to work for those departments. We pared it down to just 1 shared resource between them. Once we have that management analyst on board, we may see what is the contribution they're making. Because one of the things that the management analysts are doing in our organization is pursuing grant funding. So these are positions where if we otherwise would not have had the capacity to apply for a grant, and that grant funding ends up being more than the salary that we're paying to the individual, then we're actually ahead in revenue by hiring that person.
So the one thing I will add, and again, I'm not expecting it to be a popular statement, but I know most of us in the private industry, we're getting pushed back very hard on adding new headcount, really for anything, if we're honest about it. And part of the pushback we're hearing is you now have new tools to help you be more effective, to do more with the labor you have on hand, right? So my question is, do we have a training gap that we're not addressed? Are people fully being optimized currently to go there?
No, it's a result of being understaffed. So back in 2008, the city eliminated 21 positions, and we're not even back to we're probably right at that level of having hired back the same number of employees that we had back in 2008. So we have done it by remaining understaffed, which is why you've seen year over year additions to the reserves, because we don't have enough employees to accomplish the plans that we set forth each year, trying to get to these strategic plan items. And the management analysts, in particular with those strategic plan projects, they are our utility players who can be plugged in on teams to move those projects forward.
And the fire department had a staffing study done this past year, right?
Yes, they sure did. Manning study.
A Manning study. And remind me, how many positions did they suggest the department needed?
They suggested 12. Now, they didn't say, hire 12 people in your next budget. They said, do it incrementally. So adding 1 per shift really is a perfect incremental way of doing it. And it comes with this plan in upgrading the squad from basic life support to advanced life support. So in addition to providing the personnel just to respond to any call in general, this allows us to have an advanced life support system to follow that ambulance, equipment that the ambulance itself cannot carry. So we're bringing all that additional equipment to types of incidents that need them.
A follow-up on that is, could you articulate a bit more about what strategic plan initiatives the HR analyst will be tackling?
Wendy, can you help me out with that?
And I do see you have your hand up, so
Yes.
you'll be next.
So currently right now, and this year, as you may recall, we implemented a new payroll system, and payroll came over to HR. So not only in the regular day-to-day duties, we are now also processing payroll every 2 weeks. Some of the initiatives that HR can make an impact to the city on that we just don't have the bandwidth to complete is things, for example, we have the ability to earn rebates and various others, which is similar to like grants or things like that in the HR world. We can earn rebates through wellness initiatives and well-being benefits analysis. And those are things that we just haven't really been able to fully explore. We've touched it at a very high level, but there are many things we can do a lot deeper to that, as well as review things such as recruitment and retention. Again, it's kind of following that same philosophy of austerity of whether we just do the bare minimum within HR or we have the ability to focus in on things like culture, things along the lines of recruitment and retention, things we can do for the employee experience, all of those types of things that we just really don't have the bandwidth to fully encompass and do.
Alderman Barron, go ahead.
Thanks, Alan. So I just have a question along the lines of the analyst. I know, Laura, one thing that you'd mentioned, if you could help me understand, you mentioned that they would be contributing to grant funding. How would that be different from the grant? I know also in the budget that there's a position for a grant writer, that we've hired a grant writer for that. So how would that work be different from what that grant writer is doing?
So we have a contract with an external organization called ACS, and they are a wonderful partner of ours. However, it is required on our side for us to provide them with the data and information that they need in order to complete those grant agreements. So while they do a fantastic job of taking the raw data that we are providing, somebody on our side, and unfortunately, a lot of times this has fallen to the department head themselves because there just isn't bandwidth elsewhere within a department in order to respond to the information requests that we receive from ACS. The other thing is they are able to locate some grants, but within our organization, individuals develop expertise on where to look for the specific grants that are relevant to their function within the organization.
Okay, and then just a follow-up question on that. I was looking at the budget for both of the positions. Are they both only going to be looking at being part-time or hired in the middle of the year because they both had very similar salaries? Is that the expected time for when they'd be brought on?
It would be expected that we would pursue hiring the public safety management analyst for as soon as possible, and that we would begin recruiting for the HR management analyst mid-year. I noticed Max had his hand up with regard to the last question about grants.
Yeah, I was just going to say with grants, I mean, we are consistently applying to nearly every grant we get our fingers on, and that has brought in tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for the city. My annual salary is what it is, but I was able, when I was a management analyst, to secure over $320,000 for the electric vehicle chargers. That has paid for my salary multiple times over as a result of that. But like I said, right now, most of the time I'm working with department heads and senior level staff who are extremely busy on top of their day-to-day work. And a lot of what we're seeing in our grant applications and what the feds, the state, and others are asking for is a lot of data. Multiple years of data put together in a neat format that tells the story of why you need a grant. And that's where these analysts will really shine, is by consistently being on top of that data. A lot of what we talk about for accreditation as well is a lot of data analysis and data gathering and data researching. That then forms the basis for us to show where our gaps are, which then allows us to make stronger grant applications. So administrative consulting specialists, who is our consultant, we pay them $20,000 a year, and they have paid for themselves already 10, 20, 30 times over. And so that has been a fantastic partnership. And combining that with the analysts will help us make the most out of our grant opportunities, which unfortunately at the state and federal level are getting harder to come by. But we're still finding that we're having some level of success because of the time and energy and our partners for these grant projects.
Alderman Lohman.
wanted to ask Chief Flowers to speak a little bit more about the need for the 2 police officers. I think it was nice to have the recap about the fire department and the ability to offer advanced life support. But with the police, if you could explain to the public how minimum staffing affects services and why it is that we need additional support. If you could provide like examples so to help the public understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you'll see in the memorandum requesting 2 additional officers, we did note the prevalence that our department worked at minimum staffing. So minimum staffing is kind of like the core number of officers necessary to respond to emergency calls for service and ensure that we have coverage for the entire community. When we are at minimum staffing, what that does though, however, is there's less time for self-initiated activities that are vital to community safety. So traffic enforcement, high visibility patrol, targeted patrol of problem areas. We're also we're not as able to be responsive to community concerns. Another issue with minimum staffing is it can increase the emergency response time. So our resources are spread thinner, maybe tied up on other calls for service. If all of our officers are down on a particular call for service, we could have a delayed or impaired response to an emergency call. Fewer officers on the street impacts officer safety, particularly when responding to critical incidents. The recent shooting that transpired back in August, we were at minimum staffing on that day, so we had a very limited number of personnel available to respond to that. We relied heavily on our fellow area agencies. We had Geneva, St. Charles, Aurora, and the King County Sheriff's Office all in our town assisting on an incident like that. Additionally, minimum staffing affects morale and employee wellness due to burnout and fatigue. Can lead to increased overtime costs when we're scheduled at minimum staffing. If somebody calls off, that needs to be backfilled with overtime, so it does increase overtime costs. It also reduces our community engagement opportunities, which is one of our strategic plan initiatives.
I had another question for Peggy, or who. Peggy's our Director of Finance. Just to help everyone understand that we've been operating on a deficit, if we can speak more to that and how many years we've been pulling from the reserves and how this has been ongoing, if you can speak a little bit to that point.
Sure. As Laura pointed out on the chart here, in 2023, we added to reserves, and we also did in 2024. We received funding through the CARES Act and through ARPA, which increased our reserves. And we were able to complete some projects like the one in Carriage Crest because of that additional funding. But we won't have that going forward. And based on projections and the one-time revenues that we know are going to go away once the houses that are being built, we aren't going to have those connection fees and permit revenues that will impact our resources.
And did you have another question? Or do you still have your hand up?
No, thanks, Alan. I did raise my hand again. Going back to the police chief, I know that doing the community outreach has been a big priority amongst the council the last couple of years. And there's been a ton of programs that they've done with, Coffee with the Cop and other engagement things. Are there any additional outreach programs planned, to kind of support the need for this additional personnel that hasn't been done over the last couple of years?
So it will improve our ability to kind of organically get out into the community and interact with the community. Again, when we're at minimum staffing, we don't have the time or the opportunity to engage with the community in kind of those informal conversation, citizen on the street, kids playing basketball, whatever it may be, things that we love doing that really kind of grow our relationship with the community. When our staffing is at minimum levels, those are things that we're not able to do. And that's something that we want to be intentional about, getting out there, engaging with the community, having those contacts and those relationships, and just kind of building that trust between us and the community. So that's probably one of the primary ways. We have been really good these last few years about getting out, engaging with the community in terms of hosting events, coffee with a cop, things like that. We want to continue to do that. We don't want something to happen. We have had over the last couple of years, we've had instances where we've had to actually reassign personnel from specialty divisions, our narcotics division, our investigations division. They've had to be reassigned, as well as our traffic enforcement unit. They get reassigned to patrol just so that we're able to fulfill our core responsibilities of responding to emergency calls for service. So we would hate for something like that to impair or, impede the progress that we've made with our community initiatives as well.
Something else I'd like to add is that this past summer, we had a program that was a preparedness class for children during their summer break. And we only had the capacity to do one of those classes. It was wildly successful and very popular. And we would love to do more of that with the community in terms of emergency preparedness, working either with King County OEM or with our own ESDA organization to put those courses up.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you to staff for putting this together. I know this is a huge task. I do budgets as well. So thank you for all the effort. I also want to say, on previous councils, we have definitely picked this thing to pieces. If you look at the historical data, I do think Batavia has been good stewards of the dollar of the taxpayer. And, we fought pretty hard to kind of take a really good look at this, make sure we're making the right moves for the city. But I will admit, I think some previous councils have probably kicked a couple cans down the road that maybe shouldn't have been. Hindsight's 2020. Everyone can look back and make a different decision. But, I just want the public to understand that this has definitely been gone through. There's no one takes it lightly. It's kind of a heavy swing this year with kind of, call it everything going up. But that's just kind of been the nature of the world we're living in right now. And the facts are we've dealt with a lot of rising costs. We've ate a lot of those costs. We've looked at spending reserves. We've tried a lot of things to not raise taxes on folks. So I just want that to be known and to say thank you to staff. And all great questions on everyone's points. None of this was meant to call that out, just to say that, a lot of this is also proactive thinking instead of, where we've kind of put ourselves in a situation sometimes where we have to be a little more reactive. This kind of gives us that leg up to be a little more proactive, like, on the policing or fire, like, could we survive? Yes, maybe. But as we grow, we want to be in front of these things. We want to, be prepared. So thank you.
Alderman White.
Thought it was Alderman Brown.
Yeah, sorry. I'll never live that one down. Sorry.
No worries. Laura, could you also show or reiterate the spend of the dollar, our portion of that dollar, and how that relates? You had shown that in the previous meeting, if that's possible.
Absolutely. I think that's in the budget overview, Peggy. Is that right?
If you go to funding sources, and tricky little carrot.
This thing.
I just think that's important for the folks in attendance and the 13 people watching on BATV, I guess 12, including me.
Maybe if
I'll say something while we're waiting for that.
There we go. Yeah.
That was
the general public.
I'm sweating.
That's why we spend money on IT.
Oh, That's not, they're looking for the dollar. Oh, I think that's in the executive overview.
What I was going to say is the total tax bill is usually what most people look at, not the breakup of what we get, what the park district, what the school districts get.
Touche.
Okay, so as you can see, the city portion is 10 cents of that dollar. So approximately, when you're looking at your tax bill, that portion that is the property tax that goes to the city is only 10% of your total tax bill, which is less than the combined park district and library district as well.
So Laura, just so everybody's clear on that, so the budget that we're discussing, and in terms of the questions people have had about police officers, firefighters, analyst positions, the increases in the water, sewage, electric rates, all of that is 10% of every dollar that people pay on their taxes, correct?
I would say except for the utility rates, because those are separate. But as far as property tax goes, that's what this demonstrates.
Okay.
And I'd like to add that this is based on the current year's tax rates because we don't know what the other districts' tax rates will be next year.
Alderman Fehrenbach.
Just a quick question, only because, again, people have asked. So when it comes to increasing the fire department personnel, what have you, given that we've had numerous studies in the past that have shown that the vast majority of our fire department is not for actual fire, to respond to fires, it's for ambulance medical usage, correct? And given that they tend to go to the same complexes over and over, it's not legal, it's not possible to charge an additional fee to those properties. We take the additional calls as they come, correct?
That's right. And Chief, would you like to address that?
Thank you. Just in clarification, what we're doing is upgrading the current squad status from the fire rescue that it provides to the advanced life support. So it will have the capability of any ambulance. So not only will it supplement the ambulance by following it and providing additional personnel, but when the ambulances are restocking or having just dropped off patients at the hospital or having to come across town, the squad will be the first arriving unit to provide immediate advanced life support services until the ambulance gets there to continue those life providing services. The squad also serves as a jump company across to the truck, to the rescue, as part of the rescue unit. So it not only provides rescue for auto accidents, building incidents, but also rescue on high-rise aspects too when it jumps across for structural fires and things of that nature. So it's a dual-purposed vehicle that will enhance its capability multifold or another 2 times. So almost 4 times the ability it has now.
Can folks remind me, we paid for the Wilson Street Bridge and the fire stations with bonds, but we paid those bonds with the sales tax increase or a combination of things?
The bridge, we had most of it with federal funding, but we did issue bonds for $2,500,000 in 2005, and those were paid off last year. And there was a small property tax levy for that. It was about $130,000 of our total levy each year. And the fire stations were funded with bonds that were paid for with home rule sales tax. And our last payment on those will be in January of 26.
And so this additional sales tax increase plus what we will no longer be spending on the fire stations, will that all go into the savings account for the police station or?
No, that was from general fund revenue. And the deficit is $1.9 million without having to pay the bonds because of increases in operating costs, increases in salaries because our salaries are 75% of our costs.
The sales tax part is harder for me to swallow, just amid the rising prices of everything right now and the regressive nature that it just is. Is there a way for us to establish that we will put that fund in place? We will start saving for the police department, and at such a point then roll that off once we don't need it anymore?
You can always make that decision, but the budget for that additional sales tax is segregated in a separate building fund.
Yes.
So that it would not go into the general fund and just get used for other things. It would definitely go in a separate fund to be set aside for future building needs. If in 2 years you decide we're going to just make improvements to this building and this police station because we don't want to borrow, then you'll have the money to do that. But there's always going to be building needs, regardless of whether it's a new building or adaptive reuse or something in this building.
I was here when we did the fire stations, and remind me, Peggy, was it 11 or 13 million was what we had to borrow to do the 2 stations?
We ended up issuing bonds for 10 million.
For 10 million. So, just what we've seen preliminary already, it's going to be easily double, maybe triple of that to build a police station today, which is just crazy that that's the cost, but that's what it is. And, when we passed that sales tax, it was set up to be for paying those bonds back and then infrastructure after that, I believe is what we
initially
quantified it for.
Right. And we have a few $1 million in infrastructure transfers that we do each year out of the general fund, which includes sales tax to fund roads and fire apparatus, public works apparatus, and building capital.
So when we, pass this, is that what would be there? And then it would be on the future city councils if they wanted to change that or roll it back.
When we initially increased the home rule sales tax not initially, but in 2014, we tried to put a sunset clause in it, and the state of Illinois will not honor a sunset clause. They require you to repeal it. So even if you did want to put in a sunset clause, they wouldn't honor it. So it would just be the city council can at any time repeal a tax.
Going back a few years here. So when Sam's Club closed in Batavia, it left a big funding gap, right? Huge. And is that something that we've ever recovered from, or is...
It turned out that the impact wasn't nearly, it wasn't 1 for 1. So it turned out that there was an escalation in sales tax revenue that made up some of that difference.
I was just curious because I know we're forward thinking to like Tesla and other things, but there is, there's some caution, there's a cautionary tale to how much power we give to one area, for a revenue source. So I was just curious about
definitely want diversification. While it is great to have a huge employer come to town or a huge retail establishment come to town, you definitely want to keep in mind what is the plan if this continues.
And I'm sorry, thank you. And as I'm thinking on this, when we took out the bonds for the fire departments, what was kind of the bond rate at that point, and what's the bond rate now? I know we don't have a crystal ball, but what I'm trying to think of is when we need to borrow for the police department, bond rates, I believe, are generally going up.
Yes.
That debt is more expensive.
Well, they had been, but now they're going down as the Fed eases.
This is the rate.
But back in 2006, it was 4.25, and that's just about the rate that we issued for the sewer bonds earlier this year. So we're about the same level right now. But there was a period of time.
It was much lower.
In 2008, 2009, through 2015, the rates were dropping to very low.
So there's sort of an uncertainty component to borrowing.
Right.
That may make it more expensive, maybe less expensive, but we kind of don't know, which makes budgeting for that hard. Whereas if we have cash in the bank, it's a little easier to.
We can time our issuance of debt if we have that savings.
Alderman Barron, your hand up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Alan. So could you help me understand? I know that the state passed the legislation to allow for 0.25. Is that something that the city of Batavia gets to keep, or is that being earmarked for something else?
No, that the 0.25 for transportation.
Right. That's for the RTA, and none of it goes to Batavia.
Right.
Okay. And then I kind of want to echo with Alderperson Beck as far as the sales tax. I mean, is there any potential where we could choose not to have it be on food, but then maybe sales tax on everything else? Is that an option, and what kind of, how would that affect this budget?
So there is only the 1% on grocery, and this 0.5% is not increasing the 1% grocery tax.
So this sales tax would not hit the groceries at all?
That's correct.
That would be on general sales tax, not on grocery tax.
It would also not hit registered vehicles. So anything at the Tesla dealership, it would not.
Did you have something?
So could we add
say, Dustin?
Oh, sorry. On the RTA sales tax, I read recently that at least in Kane County, most of that actually doesn't go to the RTA. It goes to the courts and road construction.
That was previously, so the 2%.
The previous 2%. But
Yeah, the previous 2% is able to be used for the courts and the police, sheriff's office, roads.
Right.
My understanding is this 0.25 is dedicated
Okay.
to transportation.
Right. But none came to Batavia.
Right.
It went to the county.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
I learned that recently and was somewhat surprised by that fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think another thing that's important to point out that I read about when I was going through everything is that not only is this 0.5 not going towards groceries, which I know was some people's concern, it's not just directed solely at the citizens of Batavia. Whoever comes into this town and buys anything, they can be from Geneva, St. Charles, and I invite as many of those outside people to come into this town to buy things to contribute to our taxes. Because it's for anybody who comes into town. It doesn't matter where they live. It's not just a Batavia tax. So it's not just like a increase in property taxes or something. This is a way to grab money from anybody we can get in this town to buy stuff.
Exactly.
And so I just heard that this 0.5 is not going to apply to groceries. It's also not going to apply to registered vehicles. So any sales and I believe Tesla would be our only dealership in town, I think. And I suppose I have two questions about this. First, can we make it for registered vehicles? We're not allowed, we can't do that? Okay. That kind of defeats, my second question was, Tesla tends to sell their vehicles online as opposed to in dealerships. And I was going to sort of ask an enforcement question on that. I mean, are we actually anticipating many sales actually occurring, or people walking in and then buying a car elsewhere to dodge our tax?
It's our understanding that the tax is earned at the point of delivery.
Point of delivery, gotcha. Thank you.
Even?
Where in the budget does it indicate that the sales tax is not grocery tax? Only because I think that came as a happy surprise to some of us on council right now.
It's not listed in the budget, but it's on the finance page of the website where there's a page about how sales taxes are distributed and what they apply to. And home rule sales tax does not apply to groceries or registered vehicles. And that's a state law, and we can't pick and choose what items. It's either home rule or non-home rule. And then non-home rule is the same as home rule, except they're restricted to use it for infrastructure, which is when we originally passed ours, we were a non-home rule community at that time, and that's why
It
it
went
was
to referendum for
restricted
that.
to infrastructure at that time.
And then all the dealerships that are online, that are out like in the industrial park and other places, they also pay the sales tax
They
on
pay
the
us-
vehicles.
Right, the sales tax on vehicles. I believe Chicago is allowed to have an additional tax for vehicles, but that's because they're a community over 500,000.
And that, the other thing I wanted to make sure we talk about for the 1% grocery tax is that is not an increase in it. It's just maintaining what was there before. When the governor decided that that was what the state was going to do, by removing that, that left over $1 million
That's correct.
fall for
That would have been
Batavia, and
a
that's why we
hole in our
went
budget. Yeah.
for that last year, and we had to pass that in June, so that way it would be ready to go
Effective,
for
right.
the first of the year.
And if the council, it's a separate vote for the sales tax addition, a separate ordinance. It is included in the budget and is appropriate to be part of this discussion because it would impact it if you decided not to pass it. But if you do pass an ordinance, it wouldn't go into effect until July 1st because of the timing on when we have to notify the state so they can get everything set up.
We would have had to do it by October 1st.
And that would be one of the reasons why we're spending down reserves to be able to make up that first 6 months of not having that tax.
No, actually, because we're going to be setting that aside in the building fund just for future use for a facility.
It'll be put into a capital fund.
Okay.
I just wanted to make you aware of when it would impact those purchases at stores.
Alderman Fehrenbach?
Yeah, regarding the local gas tax, do we have any plans? I know that revenue's been declining, correct?
I'm sorry, what?
The gas tax, has that revenue been declining? Our share of that?
It's been consistent. It hasn't. It's been pretty level, actually.
Okay, great.
The local gas tax.
It could decline, I guess, as if more people buy EVs, but so far it's been consistent.
I know we went over this when we approved the Tesla dealership, but when you say point of delivery, does that mean if somebody in Geneva buys it, it's delivered to their home in Geneva, or is it all Batavia? We are the delivery spot. The dealership is the delivery spot.
Currently, my understanding, back when we were having talks with Tesla about them coming to Batavia, we were incredulous why they needed hundreds of parking spaces at their location. And they told us that it's because they will get hundreds of cars delivered at once. They take in orders at locations from all over our area. The cars are prepped at this location, and they said people come to this location to pick up their car. Yeah.
Great. And then car prep. I had a question as we talk about kind of diverse revenue sources. I was looking at the economic development line items and just noticed that there were a few things under contractual services, the business recruiting, consulting, and other consultants in marketing that came in way under budget this year, but are back in the budget kind of at the almost full price from this year. Can you kind of explain why we didn't spend it all this year and what's going to be different next year?
Yeah, a lot of that is just, again, the bandwidth issues that we just didn't have time to get to certain things. And some of it is things that are what I'll call discretionary, that, are things that we may want to use it for with, certain types of marketing. We didn't do a lot of marketing this year for, advertisements or anything like that. The business development consultant, one of the things we were going to do originally was data center marketing. We didn't really need to do that because of all what's happened there. But we have been working on trying to do more hotel marketing and recruiting of entities that would bring in hotels. There's a company we used to do a hotel study analysis a few years ago, and it's kind of the next phase is to actually use them to try and bring in the actual hotel. So that's one of the things that we were budgeting for.
What do you expect to change in your bandwidth next year compared to this year?
One of the things is the special events currently is managed by CED, and that is going to be moving to administration, and that represents probably 150 to 200 permits that previously were processed and led by the economic development manager.
And there's also been some changes in regards to the chamber. Anthony is no longer the city representative on that, so that took up a substantial amount of time, so that'll free up some additional time for him to do other things as well.
To that special events point, one of the things you will see in the administration department budget is a community engagement intern. Since a lot of our special events kind of come during that summer period and other things, with that moving to administration, that intern would likely also support that. But we've also taken on liquor licenses as well, and so we'll be taking on special events as well. So that really frees up our economic development manager to be doing a lot more of that economic development work and less of that processing of making sure special events get out and about.
Anybody online? Questions? Okay, I think we'll open it up to public comment now.
Alan, I just have one question. Sorry. Thanks. Abby kind of segued into a little bit more of the micros of the budgets. And one thing that really stood out to me this year was looking at the commodities of the overall general fund and looking at the large increases on that. So I'm just curious, and I know some of it has to do with moving of software, of budgets and everything. But as I'm looking at some of the stuff, I'm seeing increases of 2-3 times of what they were in 2003. So I'm just curious with the addition of software that we've given, why we're seeing some, specific budget items still increasing as opposed to decreasing on that. I'm just trying to understand, what's going on there.
Yes,
and if there's maybe an opportunity to go ahead.
I was just going to say, I tried to take a look at that on a department by department basis between last year and this year. And my understanding and looking at it, the differences seemed 100% attributable to the addition of software to the commodities line for each department. But if you see something within the commodities that is non-software related that you require additional explanation for, please let me know.
Office supplies? I'm seeing
all
office
departments?
supplies. Yeah, I'm seeing office supplies for admin 3 times of what it was 2,000 years ago. Office supplies for HR is 10,000. Finance is 10,000. 21,000 for IT. 7,000 for billing. So those are just more things. It's not going to be a huge impact, but that's like $1 million or $2 million right there of, if I could see an area that could, and I don't know what's being purchased, but when I see that and knowing that we have this technology, I have to begin to kind of question what's going on there. Like these are going up as opposed to going down.
And I don't have the numbers next to me, but for instance, in administration, what was the budgeted, what was the difference between last year's budget and this year's budget?
Just get to it.
I didn't recall.
We've got that in front of us. So, for example, the office supplies budget for administration did go from 5,000 last year to 17,500. The primary reason behind that is we added in a sub line item called community engagement materials. One of the things we hope to do with you all, and this was something that was in our strategic plan, is ward level community engagement events. We're thinking about maybe it's block parties and other things like that. That is designed to cover what those costs are. So things like food, an event area, the ability to do more events at the farmers market. We're hoping to get out there at least weekly, at every single farmers market in some way, if not more of them. So that's what that represents in the admin budget.
And that's part of the strategic plan.
Okay, but yeah, I'm looking at, $10,000, for general supplies. I mean, that's where things begin to just start, and it's with every department. And this is something that you guys can definitely talk about as you go along. But, also, I saw every department having a phone budget where phones are being purchased. Maybe there's an opportunity to say, hey, do we need people carrying multiple phones, or do we move to the model which a lot of businesses are doing of BYOD, where they get a stipend for their phone? That way it's not landing completely on our taxpayers to maybe pay for a phone for everybody in the city.
So I'd like Wendy to have an opportunity to respond both to the commodities for her department as well as the phone question.
Yeah, going back to the commodities for office supply, in my budget specifically, the increase is related to if that additional position is approved. Because obviously there's office furniture and there's things that we would need in order to have that new position there and anything they might need to be able to do their job. In regards to phones, we offer either the actual phone or a phone stipend. So if employees do not wish to carry an additional phone and they already have their phone, we do a phone stipend, which we do. So many of our employees do a phone stipend already, but then as you can imagine, many of our employees from an on-call and other perspective in our public works department, there's certain particular phones they have to carry in order to do their jobs when they're not at work.
So we do have a bring your own device program, and this is my own device.
If I may as well, on the phone budget, one of the things that was on the strategic plan as well was expanding field maps. That's something that has increased our phone cost in some of the public works departments, because now we were literally giving out flip phones as recently as last year. That did not allow for us to use any GIS data to be able to use our apps and our software. That led to staff having to take manual notes, come back to the office, enter that into the computers and whatnot. Now they will be able to do that directly from their phone, saving time and money. So that is, again, some of the evolution in how we do things. I mean, we gave an employee a flip phone and they were not sure how to use some of the flip phone features, because that's, we're hiring people that were born in 2003, 2004 at this point in some situations.
Anything more,
I
Jen?
definitely appreciate, I appreciate, the response to that. I'm just, looking at it as this is something that, if I could see a possible savings in the future for discussion, maybe to consider that, because I know that is definitely a budget item that you see going down. But, I appreciate the explanation, but I just wanted to kind of bring that to the surface.
Wendy has another comment.
Yeah. The only other piece I would add, just to kind of differentiate between private sector and public sector, is that from a phone issue, we're subject to FOIA. So employees, we need to give them the opportunity of, do they wish to have, like, for example, this is the only phone I have, and I have to accept the fact that if I ever got FOIA, they would look at my personal. Some employees, understandably, do not wish to do that, and so that's why we have differences as far as some do city issued phones or vice versa. I just wanted to kind of point that out as well.
Alderman Fehrenbach?
You know what? We have a unique situation this year. And since we've mentioned hotels, when we've mentioned special events, we're going to have a 200 hotel room casino complex with 900 slot machines, 500 live table games, including baccarat and hotel rooms or poker rooms. The city will not be getting a dime from that complex, correct?
The city of Batavia's school district has the potential to earn a considerable amount. And by it being right on our border, this is why we believe that perhaps that vacant retail spot that is by the townhomes on Wind Energy Pass might be the perfect place to put a lesser priced hotel than the hotel rooms that are at the casino. So we're hoping that that rising tide over there may raise a ship on our side of the border.
the Batavia School District, that revenue, additional revenue, isn't potentially going to roll in for at least a decade, correct? Something like that?
I believe that they receive some amount of the increment during the TIF period that was an agreement between the Batavia School District and the City of Aurora.
One of our wonderful overlapping areas.
Yep.
That's what it is.
Any other questions? Okay, now we'll open up for public comment. If you want to come up, all we need is your name for the record. If anybody wants to come up.
You got to come up to the mic if we're going to talk.
Yeah, we have to get you on the mic so that way we at least, okay, sure. Yep, so you can see the green light talking to us, so you can carry yourself in the background.
Well, unaccustomed to public speaking as I am. And realistically, I have to say a lot of this is new to me. This is some of the first time I've heard a lot of this information. But I want to take the time to thank everybody here, ladies and gentlemen, for your hard work. Everything that you do here is appreciated. But again, being that this was kind of a spur of the moment, I'm going to kind of go off of memory. So if I say something that might be incorrect, just help me out and straighten me out. I think a gentleman over here, and I'm not sure what your name is. Tim Lancy. Tim, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I think you had kind of finished your statement with, you were thanking everybody and you like the proactivity way of going about things and handling business and putting it together. I can appreciate that. However, practicality also is part of the proactivity. Now, I've managed large corporations, worldwide divisions. A lot of my management was proactive, but it also had to be practical. There's a fine balance between those as to which way we go and why do we need to go there. Speaking to the fire chief and the police chief, I applaud you gentlemen. The fire chief, unfortunately, I've never had to use your services, and I hope I don't for a long time. So thanks for everything that you do. Police chief, the only thing I've needed from you was calling in once a year to get parking permit for my street because I had my driveway seal coated. But your people there treated me very well. I'm very pleased with it. So again, if I don't need your services in the future, I'm a very fortunate person. But to something that you had said specific to the amount of officers that you need, which is 2. I listened to your requirements and some of the things that you said you could do and accomplish with the community and all these extra programs, et cetera. I find that difficult to believe you can do that with just 2 more people. What I would prefer, I have nothing against police, fire. I think they're definitely needed entities within a thriving community. But to truly do it, let's get the men that we need. Let's forget about a building. We don't need to pay for a building. I'd rather see you with 12 men than a huge building that we're going to be paying for years or having to maybe go back to banks, get into debt, take out loans. Because the bottom line, whether Batavia borrows the money, has the interest rates, and goes into debt, or it's just the people of Batavia in our taxes. So guess what? Somebody is always going to be in debt. The problem is who can handle it the best. Now, my wife and I have been here for going on 36 years. We've seen this city do a lot of great things. It's a great community. We love it. Kids that went through the schools here, couldn't be happier. But you know what? We would really like to stay here. But taxes are becoming a real issue. Kane County in general is becoming a real issue. Unfortunately, we don't have the means to sustain if things keep going in the direction that they go. because we don't have the ability just to go find money someplace. We can't go tell somebody, give me money because I need to pay my taxes. No different than the expectations y'all have for us to pay for everything back as well. Now, again, foresight's required. I get that. Do we need to accomplish everything in 2 years up to 2028 and just say, well, we would like to have that. We'd like to have a new police station. We'd like to have this. We'd like to have that. That's a lot of likes, but what's the wants and needs? You know, by the way, what do the people of Batavia really want? Because I'm assuming that's what y'all are doing here is you're representing them because that's how you got here in the first place. Is there been enough information or feedback from the people as to what they require? Maybe they want 12 more officers on the street. If I had my druthers, I would do that. I'd give them to you in a heartbeat. But I don't need a building to do it. I don't need a fancy police station to offer that up. These are the guys that are out there day and night protecting us. They get the credit. I'd rather see them than a new building.
Just something for you to realize too is whether we build a building or whether we hire 12 new police officers, that cost is going to keep going up. And the officers, you've got their pensions, their medical, everything else that you have to add into that.
I understand
forever.
I understand that. What I'm saying is that's what I would like to see. That's just me personally speaking. Okay. Again, back to practicality. It may not be practical. Okay. But again, it's seeing both sides of it and truly understanding what we need, what can we work with, and how can we do it practically where people like us, you know, another 2-3 years, we may have to actually start looking to say, where are we going to move to? We don't have the luxury. Now, granted, everybody wants to improve. Batavia wants to, you know, do things, look great, whatever. I get it. But you got to have the people in the town to still make that happen. And if they can't afford to be here at some point, then you're all going to be here with your town by yourself. I don't mean that negatively. It's just a point to consider. So again, all I'm asking out of all of you is to just stop, take a moment, take a breath, whatever you need, and truly think of how much you really need and how fast you think you need it. I don't like paying taxes. I know they're necessary. Wish I didn't have to do it. But if I got to pay a tax, I want to pay it somewhere where I truly think it's going to benefit us 100%, not partly, and not turn around the next year because we need to do something else because that didn't work because it might not have been thought out properly. So I'm going to end with this. And this was something that one of my bosses told me when I took over a corporate position for a worldwide company that I was managing one of the divisions. He said, I am giving you this job because I know you can do it. He said, I'm not going to look over your shoulder. I'm not going to bug you. He said, but every month we will get together and we will sit down and go through everything. Budgets, reports, plans, you name it. He says, if I see anything on there that looks suspicious or wrong, or even something that is worth questioning, he says, I am going to question you. And this is what's something that stuck with me for the rest of my career. He said, as long as you can give me an answer that is in the best, well-termed interest of my company, I'm good to go. All I'm asking all of you right now is to do that same thing. Just stop, take a breath, think about what you're doing, and just make sure that whatever you choose to do, you're just doing it in the best long-term interest of the Batavia residents. So I thank you for your time.
Let me get your name for the record.
First and last.
Yep.
Craig Fugman.
Since we don't have a clerk, can you just spell the last name, please?
F as in Frank, U-G-M-A-N.
We have Alan Dublin as our clerk tonight, so.
Yeah, right. Okay, got it. Thank you, sir.
That is a lot of the reason why I made the comments that I did, because I didn't want it. Now, trust me, we are working on this, on how to inform our community better, right? And I can tell you that as a citizen, and then as sitting up here on council, whether it's a comfortability thing or whatever, but Americans in general don't pay a whole lot of attention to their local, call it politics, call it whatever, their local, whatever the heck we are here. But their local bodies, there aren't a lot of people that pay attention to it. The one thing I've learned tremendously from this experience is that I will forever throughout my life now pay attention to this, because these are the things that affect us. And I want you guys to know that we have exhaustively spent, I don't even know how many hours. I mean, between our retreats and things like that, and all the hours until 11 o'clock we've spent in this room going over this with a fine-tooth comb, even the questions tonight, very well put, still digging, trying to find ways. The facts are facts in terms of some of the external factors that are driving us to this, that we just cannot keep up with. I mean, it is what it is. It's the world we're living in. Everything is getting more expensive. And the only thing I'll say, and I thank Alderman Brown for bringing it up, is that the dollar picture is huge. I mean, I didn't even ever know this until I came on council. Shame on me. I had no clue where my tax dollars were really going. And so to see that, it hit me like, okay, maybe I need to start showing up at the school board meetings and seeing what the heck they're doing with all that money. And, the 66% that they're taking plus some, we're not even going to talk about what they're going to get from the casino and such. So, and I'm not throwing blame. You make great points. I would just say that we have exhaustively tried to not raise. I am not a raise your taxes guy at all. And I just think we have basically been put in a corner here. And we are at a point where we are at an inflection point in this town. And I hate to say this like this, and I don't know how else to put it, but one of the negative side effects of what we have to do is there will likely be some gentrification of some sort in terms of, yes, moving forward, the affordability of this town moves in the negative direction to, or however you want to put it. But I want it to be known that the councils, both before this and this, have spent a bunch of time looking at this, and staff especially, because they know not to bring anything to us, because they know we're going to question a lot of it, on behalf of the residents of Batavia. So I'll leave it at that, but thank you for coming up. Thank you for showing up, because we have had a number of these in my tenure where this room is empty and we are gone already. So.
Alderman Malone?
Yeah, thank you, Alderman Lancy. Similar things. And your comments to us reminded me of a few things. First off, we do sometimes forget that not everybody's paying as close attention as we are. So on the affordability side of things, we kind of know that as we raise taxes, affordability in this town goes in the wrong direction. On November 3rd, we talked about housing. We had a housing meeting to spend some time trying to figure out what we can do to help with the affordability of our town. We also did a pretty in-depth study on our facilities needs. And so as we think on a new police department, we're backing that up with data. We're trying our very best to make sure that it's something that we really do need, that it's really going to meet our needs. And I invite, feel free to reach out to us. I would say to anybody who listening at home, anybody who comes back to us, reach out to your alderperson. They'll find that study, they'll share it with you. And then you can make your own decision, right? Then you can say, no, Alderman Malone, you're full of it. Or you can say, I see, the numbers line up. So I want to thank you for reminding us that we're here every day and we maybe take some of this for granted, that we know this stuff and we're making these decisions because we spent the time with it. A lot of people aren't. And I hope people do become engaged, but also we're here because we have the time and energy. Other folks have maybe more important things to do with their lives. So please use us, use your older people to meet that need. And the last thing it reminded me of, which I have known the entire time, and I think we all have, but these do have real impacts on real lives, right? A 10-cent increase on a $100 property isn't $100 worth of property value. It doesn't net out to a whole lot, but over time that does impact people. And I know that I personally, and I have confidence that the other 13 folks here, we really feel it. We know it. We pay taxes here too. We have family here too. So, but thank you for those reminders. I really do mean that.
Hands up over here. Sure. If we can get your name for the record.
Vicki Fugman, V-I-C-K-I.
What?
This is the first I attended. My neighbor actually said, in fact, he's been texting me, asking this, and he's not here, but he's watching. And he's been giving me a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, you should be here because I don't understand what you're saying. First time. I've been showing up to Kane County meetings and the budgets and all of that for the last year and a half, and I'm in a group that is warring for Kane County. Kane County is a large county. And the stuff that's been going on, I'm shocked. I go to a meeting, and I'm not saying it's you, but this is kind of like a whole thing. This was a shock that this meeting was here. And I'm like, my girlfriend, who's in charge of doing a lot of things with this group, she says it's Batavia. And I'm like, Batavia? Because this is the first I heard it. I don't know why I didn't have any knowledge. So having my neighbor do that and seeing what's happening in the big building and hearing the lies, massive lies, I hear them. I mean, and the money spent and the things that we're fighting against or for, every time we come back and there's something new, something added, more. And so I'm hoping in the bigger picture of the whole thing, we're part of the community of Kane County in a small version. And I always thought when we moved here from a small town of Westmont to a small town of Batavia, I was like, what is that? What is that town? I want to stay here until we're ready to not bite the dust, but that we could afford staying here. So I'm hoping it's not a little bit like the Kane County meetings that we have, that I hear us fighting against the establishment. We're part of the establishment, and we count for something. So I appreciate what you're doing, and that I don't get up and speak, but my husband doesn't either, and I'm proud of him for doing so. So thank you.
And just for your own information, is all these meetings that we have, like the public hearing, that has to be noticed in the paper. How long is it beforehand, Peggy?
At least 10 days.
At least 10 days that comes out. And we have the schedule available on our website for these, and all the meetings that we have, whether they're committee meetings, committee of the whole, or city council meetings, are all broadcast. And we made that decision many years ago to do that, because that's the easiest way. If you can't make it to a meeting, you can watch what happens. You can go back and look online and look at any of our archived videos of what we discussed and how we got to the point where we're at to make the decisions that we make. And personally, that's one of the things, the amount of time I've been on city council, that I'm most proud of, is the fact that we did open up those committee meetings so that the public could see what we do and how we discuss this and how we come to sometimes consensus and sometimes not, to make our decisions to move forward and to do what we do feel is the correct thing for our city.
Can I jump in real quick, Alan? There is also an app, a City of Batavia app, and if you turn on push notifications, you don't even have to open the newspaper. It'll pop right up on your phone, new agenda coming up. So it's even easier if you download the City of Batavia.
Thank you, because that's not my forte in that. But if Lori was here, she could explain everything about it. Our communications director could tell you everything about how you can use those updates
Yeah.
So you get notifications when things happen
Yeah,
that the city is involved with.
Yeah, it's on BATV, it's on public access. I mean, you can get public access over the air even if you don't have cable or internet or whatever. You can, if you have just an antenna, you can watch the public access channel to watch what's going on with city council. I mean, there's just so many ways. And since I've been here, there's been just a plethora of other options that have been offered, so that I always find it that it is completely accessible, and it's just a matter of if you have any questions, all you got to do is Google it and you can find it, or just go City of Batavia and it's right there, or just turn on public access television and there's a TV schedule on there and it shows you, or just know that meetings are always on Mondays and Tuesdays. It usually alternates. I mean, every month it's the same thing.
What newspapers?
We're always here.
What newspapers? Sorry.
And you can also just sign on to the website and you can click on everybody's email addresses to email anybody, the whole council, any questions you have at any time.
Yeah, the neighbor was trying to get responses from all of it.
What are the newspapers that this is published in?
The Daily Herald. I don't get, turns out there is still, the Daily Herald is still out there.
We don't get many of the papers, seriously.
Sure. So you can also sign up for e-news on our website, and that comes out every other week. And this was part of that. It was also on the homepage of the website, and really encourage people to sign up for that app and get the push notifications. If people are on Facebook, then we also have the city page, and Lori Botterman, our communications manager, every Friday puts out what are going to be the topics discussed at the meetings in the following week.
And if there is anyone out there that has a better idea in their head floating around of because what it is everyone's topics are different, right? Everyone's interests, everything. I wish everyone would show up for everything because we'd have so much input, but I get it, right? But budget is a big one, and I've always been concerned, but I got to be honest, the more things we try, it doesn't really mount to much, because really what it comes down to is it's the person. You got to go search for it. We're not going to be able to send, even with push notifications, it's going to be, hey, there's a city council meeting coming. It's not going to tell you taxes are being discussed at a city council meeting in a month, right? It's and by the way, there's 3 other meetings before that where it's going to get talked about. So I would just say,
isn't gonna put it
when
on
in
at
doubt,
5 o'clock.
reach out to your alderman, and I'm sorry that whoever they reached out to. I mean, reach out to all of us. If you're, no one I believe here is maliciously not responding to emails. We all have day jobs. We all have families and such, just like everyone. So if something gets missed, don't hold it against that alderman. Please send it to everybody. Send it to Laura.
If you're having trouble getting a
She's our
hold
traffic cop.
of an alderman, let me know, because we discovered some technical issues that we had earlier this year with a couple of some of the contact information, and that might be just the issue.
Because I'll just say, I mean, we want more engagement.
Yes.
That is a driving force. There's no question about it. It's how do we get that, and it's hard. It's hard to get people notified.
So it's exciting to see when people are interested.
Yes. I couldn't believe there were people here. It was great to see. So thank you.
That's why we're all talking so much. So.
I was also going to suggest Alderman Fehrenbach puts out a meeting recap after the meetings are done on Facebook, and I think you have a blog now. And I also publish a weekly newsletter kind of covering all of this as additional resources if you want to reach out for those. It's a lot. I feel like it's difficult because we're competing in the broader sort of attention economy, and it can be a hard sell sometimes. So especially with a lot of algorithmic content on the internet, our stuff doesn't always get a lot of traction compared to, I guess, the more entertaining aspects of the internet.
Yeah,
that's a big part of it.
You're going to laugh. So obviously we have all these avenues to inform people. It's all over the place. It's undeniable. It's almost unavoidable. But just give you a slice. When somebody says, hey, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. If I look at just this little blog that I got, right, I can tell where people looked at it from. I can tell what articles they read. Still 1,000 people this week. right? So people are definitely looking at something, and they're out there. Part of it is just that we could probably do a better job of just giving people a one sheet. Hey, if you want to get informed, here's where you go. Boom, one shot, it's done. Maybe that's something that we can put out there for people, right? Yeah, and that way they'll probably just sum everything up. Because sometimes when you have all these opportunities to get informed from so many venues, the question becomes, which one should I use for what situation? What's the best way to do this stuff? Maybe we can provide just a one-shot guidance on it. So,
any other comments from the public? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Solfa, second by Lancy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Did anybody online vote? I didn't see.
Very delayed aye.
Okay. All right, motion carries. Public hearing is over. We will move now to 6.2, which is Resolution 2025-128R to approve the 26 budget. Recommend to council.
Before we move on, could I just ask a couple questions of Dustin about the document he sent over, just to highlight a few points in the financial decoder?
We can do that under the budget. We don't have to wait for that. Go ahead.
I can do that now.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Dustin, can you explain a little bit about the flexibility indicators specifically? I mean, the sustainability ones, I understand a little bit better. The flexibility, the interest to total revenues, and the net book value to cost of tangible capital assets. That one that's moving down pretty steadily was catching my eye. So this is on page 8.
Page 8. Yeah, that one's one of my favorite graphs in here. Sorry, this is a bit opaque to those in the audience. This past weekend, I've been putting together various charts and graphs of the city that I hope to publish in the not too distant future, but I had to get these out to council before the budget discussion. These are a variety of sort of financial sustainability indicators for the city based on our yearly financial reports over the last 20 years or so. The one we're looking at now is what's called, this is going to sound like a mouthful, net book value to cost of tangible capital assets. What that really means is it's the value of the current value of our infrastructure compared to the value when it was installed. So it's capturing the amount of depreciation that's occurred over the past time. Ideally, that'd be at 100%, meaning that our infrastructure is worth just as much as when we installed it. That doesn't happen because time makes fools of us all. But this is an indicator that helps us understand if we're keeping up with our maintenance schedule. So if it's staying flat, that's generally a fairly good sign that we are able to continually rebuild and maintain our infrastructure as it ages, and that we're not kind of getting underwater, like, bailing out a sinking ship kind of situation. And ours has been pretty flat since about 2016, but it is lower than it was earlier in the 2000s. Because this data I have now only goes back to 2009, but we were a lot closer to maintaining around 75% of that value, and now we're closer to 60. A lot of that's just been due to the city, gradually recovering from the financial crisis back then. One of the other graphs I have in here is the sort of total property value in the city for all properties combined, adjusted for inflation. And you can kind of see there that we still never quite got up as high as we were pre-2008. So in a lot of ways, the city, we're doing better now. We're gradually recovering. But that tax base adjusted for inflation, again, is still somewhat, wanting, which has led to kind of what the discussions we're having tonight in a lot of ways. Especially recent efforts to try to improve our services to help, spur just, good quality of life in the city, more though, not to say we don't have a good one now, but additional services to continue that sort of upward trend. So that's kind of the balance we've been having right now, I'd say. Because to reiterate a point that was made earlier, current number of employees, I have this graph on here as well, is still like below what it was in 2008 as well, including for police. That's actually, I believe, civilians, officers. Yeah, we have fewer police officers now than we did 20 years ago. So that's kind of what's spurring these discussions, is trying to kind of get back to where we were even back in 2008. And we are making progress in that direction. There's, I think, a lot of hope there. But again, these graphs make a lot more sense if you can see these graphs right now. And I sent them a while back, but I have some questions coming up here. Kevin, you have your hand up?
Yeah. First off, I just want to make a statement to make sure I'm understanding, and then I just have a ask smart people dumb questions kind of question here. First off, if I'm understanding this, this is graph 8, the one you're talking about, the net book value. We used to be up near the 75, but things have kind of depreciated down to 60, and now we got this little bump coming up, right? Yeah. Essentially what this means is that we've been doing enough to kind of keep our infrastructure maintained at kind of a 60% value, but we'd like to see it at like a 75% value, right? We're spending enough to stop it from getting worse, but we're not spending enough to kind of make it a little better.
More or less.
Okay.
Especially with this, trends are what you really want to look at.
Okay.
Like, if you can maintain where you're at, that's really positive.
The second question I have, and this might be more for Laura and maybe just out to the world in general, why is 2008 the staffing level we care about?
Because that was the recession, and we eliminated 21 positions in our 2010 budget.
Okay, but I mean, was that the right number at the time? And is that the right number for today? I mean, because it's like, yes, I understand why we dropped from in 2008. We all lived through that. But, the world's fundamentally different today. And so is that headcount the right headcount to have?
We didn't restore positions one for one to say those exact positions. We just brought back that position just to add us back to the headcount. In each case, we've said, what are the skills necessary that will help us to accomplish what our plan is today, whether that today was 2012, 2016, 2020, or today.
And so we feel confident that these new positions that would get us back to somewhat of an arbitrary number, the 2028 or 2008 number, but these are different enough and dynamic enough positions to hire. Okay.
I think the evolution of everything that I've seen since 2003, being on the city council and seeing what we went through when we eliminated all those positions, and it was like, okay, guess what, department heads, you're all going to do more than you were doing before because we eliminated 2 positions out of your department, 4 out of another one, and they just had to figure out how to do that. And then that also made us step back and look at what we were doing, how we were doing it, what were responsibilities, that did they align with our strategic goals? Did they align with what we were asked of by the public when we've asked in surveys? And then trying to figure out how do we implement that within whatever budget constraints we had at that point, and then try to go back to where, especially police and fire, that's just the reality of our world now. When you look at the amount of ambulance calls, the amount of fire calls, the amount of police calls that have changed over the decades, that's the reason why we have to add those. The other ones is the things we do here for the most are not a lot different, but the way they get implemented to me is a lot different than it was in 2003. Who's next? Abby?
So, Dustin, then looking at you mentioned the total property value over time, how we haven't gotten back up to the 2008 levels that we were at. So even when adjusted with inflation, even with all the homes we've built since 2008, all of the commercial development, all of the outlots, all of the big box stores, we still do not have the same property value across the town that we did back in 2008.
Got hit pretty hard.
And then,
seems,
and then comparing that to your second to last slide, 13, the private to public investment ratio.
And that's not on, oh, you do have it. Okay. Yes.
So, and your note there that says, a lower ratio implies that the amount of infrastructure per household is more burdensome to maintain. Ideally, a higher is better, although there's no ideal value. We have seen our infrastructure continue to grow, and the cost to maintain that infrastructure continues to go up.
Right.
Our properties, we keep building properties, but we're actually not building any amountable wealth on that property to maintain that infrastructure. Do you see these two trends?
Yeah.
What's the end game in that trend? Like, we just keep trending in this way and building in this way? And I'm not asking you. I'm more throwing that question out into the ether. That
and if you let me speak to this graph a little more to explain it more. So this is a ratio describing how much how much infrastructure the city has, the cost of the infrastructure that the city has, versus the total property value, to kind of give you an idea of, how much the city's invested versus everyone else in town, to help us understand kind of how the sustainability of maintaining this level of infrastructure. I kind of note here, a way to think about this is if you own a $40,000 house, you divide that value by this ratio to get kind of your share of the city's infrastructure, like how much that costs. And from that to understand, the sort of personal burden that infrastructure might be placing on you, which ideally that burden is less than the amount of quality life you're getting from it. But that's always a point of consideration for the values the city has. In regards to why it trended down a bit, especially after 2008, because we saw that drop in city property value. Another thing to note, I actually did this calculation earlier today. The city since 1997 has had a 13% increase in the amount of water mains versus the amount of water ratepayers out there. As kind of an example that we do have more infrastructure per person, per capita, or per household now than we used to, which contributes to this kind of trend. Because if there's more infrastructure per household, that means the households have to pay more to maintain that. All of these are kind of digging into the real foundational long-term, sustainability of the city. And there's a lot that can be inferred from these. These are very bulk data points. What the exact contributors are is going to be the hard part of digging into the data. If you go back to the capital budget, for instance, you can pretty much, that one, that increase at the very end, I bet you almost certainly a lot of that is our wastewater treatment plant project, which is a very large capital expenditure. But I'm just basing that on my own knowledge of what we've been building lately, and that's one of the largest. But yeah, there's a lot of data here. You can draw a lot of inferences from it, but this does, I hope, help us understand more of what's going on fundamentally and how we can, make good and wise investments going forward. And there's a lot to dig into here. I sent this out just this past weekend, so I wouldn't mind letting folks continue to just kind of absorb it before making any final judgments. But that's just, the purpose of this exercise. Again, to just give us more to chew on more than anything.
I'd just like to add that this is the entire city, and you would really need to look at it on an individual utility and citywide basis for governmental assets compared to electric, water, and wastewater assets.
That's page 12, I believe.
And definitely, the recession happened in 2008 because property values were overvalued. So we wouldn't expect that we would be at those levels because of that bubble.
Exactly. And I have a hope that in the recent increase in housing costs that we've seen the last 5-10 years or so, we haven't seen as much in Batavia. Obviously, for inflation we have, and we're all facing some of that. But compared to a lot of property markets in the U.S., based on these graphs, it seems like we're not as inflated as perhaps other places are. And as such, if there is another bubble pop, we might not be as hit as badly. That's a more of a hope and a dream on my end. Perhaps a bit of cope there, but just again another aspect to think about.
It'd be nice to get price per square foot That'd be a cool metric to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be, you have to figure out how much square footage has been sold in the residential market, but that way you could see, okay, because keep in mind, houses have gotten dramatically bigger even since 2008. So the question is, we say housing costs have gone more. Has it gone more just outright, or has it actually gotten cheaper or more per square foot, and we're just building more houses on smaller lots, and that's why these prices are bigger? So that'd be something. I'll help you with that. We'll figure that out.
Oh yeah, and that has ties to the broader housing market, housing finance market as well, for what makes profitable sense for developers. That's a whole can of worms in and of itself. Right. And where that data might come from, that's also a part of it. Because all this data, everything in this presentation comes straight from our financial reports. So, publicly available on the city website. Yeah.
I was just going to say that goes to some of our discussions we've had and some of our projects we've taken on regarding downtown development. Being able to densify and add more people to less space with less infrastructure has significant benefits. We're obviously making some significant progress just since we put in our strategic plan about getting downtown developments underway. You approved a large multifamily housing complex down on South River Street that will be paying property taxes, but also generate families that are shopping in our downtown, boosting our businesses. We know we've purchased a number of properties that we're putting together to be able to build another large multifamily housing complex. We've got an RFP out right now for additional property that the city owns to be able to develop that as well. So we recognize that, and that's part of why we're working so hard to densify our downtown, to add housing in a dense manner. When you approved the Ashton Ridge subdivision, you insisted upon additional townhomes as opposed to single family homes. Those were decisions that put more people in less space, which reduces infrastructure costs. It puts, still a nice family in a nice home, but there's 4 families in that townhome complex as opposed to 1 or 2 single family homes. So those are discussions and conversations that we can continue to have and think about as city council. But we're making progress in that regard to try to densify the community and make sure that we're using as little infrastructure as possible to get the most amount of people and residents in our community.
And that was one thing that I was going to say is, we've talked about this for decades I've been on the council, that we are so far behind in improving or rebuilding our infrastructure that even if we were to double taxes for the next 25 or 50 years, we'd still take 100 years to rebuild everything. And unfortunately, that's kind of the reality that we're at, because we are spread out and we do have miles and miles and miles of infrastructure to take care of.
Alan?
Mm-hmm.
I'm back here. I've kind of sat quiet regarding all of the infrastructure talks, but and even being proactive, we have to increase the rates and increase the funding for our utilities to even get to being proactive. There are some larger scale projects that take precedence. I have stood before you guys many of times over stormwater issues, and the only way to get there was to spend more money so our residents weren't flooding. And unfortunately, that is where Alan was going with. We didn't have that budgeted to be that proactive, and it's going to take a while to catch up. There's different aspects, roads, electric, all those different utilities end of life where we can get 100 years out of a pipe, but then we have corrosive soil and we have areas where the water main breaks and we have to be reactive. And unfortunately, when you're reactive, sometimes that costs more money as opposed to planning, because you don't get to put it out to bid. You have to get somebody in there right away. So we are working our way to looking at those areas and planning projects so we can be more proactive and being more financially responsible with the funds that we do get, and coinciding all of the projects together as well. And looking at new technologies, we do a lot of lining of our sanitary sewers so we can keep those older pipes still in place and still function and extend the life of those another 50 plus years. So those are some of the things that we do to work with the money that we are allotted.
Yeah. And that's something that, I've watched over time, the amount of time that we keep equipment, that we keep squad cars, that we keep,
the street sweeper, or the vacuum truck, or whatever we've done. And, we maintain them as best we can. And sometimes right before we're ready to replace them, we have to fix something. We just had to do that with the vacuum truck. And that's unfortunately reality. But again, we do try to plan out and say, okay, we're going to keep it for this long. And, we look to replace the things that we can get. And now we're just having trouble getting equipment, and by the time you get it, it costs more. They won't let you purchase it when you order it. In total on most of the stuff, you're going to end up paying whatever the difference is by the time it's available. Abby?
Just had one final thought. I just wanted to thank Max for that summary too, and say that because of our focus on downtown development, because of our downtown plan that we are going to be implementing soon, because we have people that'll come up with great charts on sustainability indicators and be willing to engage in conversations around that, because we're having housing discussions about how we can diversify our housing stock, how we can keep this place affordable even amid rising costs. I have been one that has pushed back or voted no on increases here in my time that I've been on council, because I completely recognize that I do not want to see people that have been here 40 years priced out of this community. I also recognize the moment that we're in and the need to invest. I am willing to support these increases today for the first time because of that commitment that I see across these tables to start doing things a little differently, so that we are investing, so that we can save, and that we can diversify, and that we can slow that need to keep the rising taxes moving forward. So I will be a little noisier probably too about some of those topics moving forward to make sure that they're staying front of mind. And in the discussion, I'm hoping for more conversations about these indicators that Dustin has shared, because I think they're really important to dissect the system that's driving this behavior over time. And just really appreciate the conversation. It's been a lot chiller than in years past, despite the spikes. So thanks.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think just as we're talking about how we're going to vote on the resolution here, I think I'm going to be a yes vote here as well, but I do have some high hopes for these analyst positions. I'm going to tell you that that's where I'm skeptical. That's where I'm wondering, do we take on a new person or not? It is $280,000 a year with pensions and such. So I really hope that we can recoup that by implementing our plans, getting some density downtown, really attacking our downtown development plan, using these really the one analyst, the other analyst is for the fire department, police station, but find the savings that we hope we can get. Again, because I do think we have the drive with this council to make some of those savings into realities, reduce that user per, infrastructure cost rate by getting some density. So that's where I'm at.
I would like to add just my experience within the last couple of months of our management analyst. She just came back from VWorks last week, and one of her tasks was to just look at all the videos online to familiarize herself with the software. That is our asset management software for all of Public Works, with our facilities, inventory, and with our day-to-day tasks, service requests when somebody calls for a street light out, or there is something wrong with their sewer, there's a backup. All this data gets entered. We use it at the very bare bones minimum. There are so many things that we can do in getting those tablets and the devices, whether it's a phone or a tablet has cellular on it. This helps us improve our day-to-day tasks. We still kind of have paper, but they were at the conference. Daniel, who had been working on that task with IT prior, and most of the communities that they spoke with have an individual person just for that task. So she is going to be tasked with that, along with multiple other softwares that we use, different reports, looking at contract documents, working on putting all of our contracts in a schedule so she could help and assist and take some of that work off of the superintendents. So there is a plethora of stuff that she can do, and she has barely been here. We have document management. I can go on, but I could probably assure you that their divisions could use the same amount of help and assistance as we can. And I don't think you'll be disappointed in having those positions.
I think one of the things that I would say after, we've gone through some of this, over the years, moving permitting to things online, being able to go online and get your overnight parking taken care of without having to involve multiple people at the city level where you're taking a phone call directing to another department, and then that department finding somebody that's actually responsible for that and then making that happen. So especially with some of the permitting and stuff that we've done, I typically, if somebody asks me about that, I direct them to the website, and then I ask them to tell me how that went or how long it took them, and was it easy, was it difficult, did they have to call somebody else? And most of the time after people have used it, it is a real time savings, and I know it is to our staff to be able to do those things and expand what used to take a day, 2, 3, 4 days a week, whatever, and now a lot of it can be accomplished in one day. You have a question? You need to come up and use the mic. Come on up.
Just readdressing the gentleman talking about the infrastructure. I completely understand the need to upgrade and improve infrastructure. That's just normal. That's just growth of towns, cities, whatever. However, I'm no civil engineer. But what I just couldn't help not thinking about is proactive thinking versus practicality again. So we can create multiple single or multiple family subdivisions. We're actually creating an infrastructure problem because we all know that is going to become another issue right down the road. As you said, we'll never get away from it. You're always going to have infrastructure issues. Rather than focusing on the growth of population because we're so interested necessarily with people because they're in our town, they're going to be shopping and we're going to make this money off of them because they're going to benefit from everything that we have to offer. Why don't we look at this a little bit differently and say, what can we do? What can we use that can fit that same bill? For example, the property off Van Nortwick where the old furnace company used to be. That, for years, I would have thought was a fabulous spot for a senior living, assisted living, a medical type of position, which, by the way, people like us now in Batavia that have been here, we're probably going to be looking for that kind of stuff in the near future. What better place to have it in the town that you lived in for all those years? Well, what does that help? These subdivisions that you put up individually now create that much more repair infrastructurally because now you're going in different directions with electric, water, sewer, roads. And oh, by the way, it doesn't stop there. Then it's the families, the kids, the schools. Now we're taxing the schools and the teachers and everything else. We create this web of issues by maybe not necessarily focusing on what could help us the best. And that's something that can help the existing people that will have a tax base brought in by the corporation that'll be here. And guess what? It opens up jobs and opportunities for other people as well that can come into our city and also utilize our stores, spend money, etc. So again, are we truly focusing on the way we want to grow Batavia? And is it always just how many people we have for that population sign? Or is it how well our town is run and managed through what we have to offer?
So I actually love that you said that because it does undergird a lot of my own motivations with putting that data together. I guess my response would be the key of that is not all development is created equal. For the outfield development, that's especially true what you were suggesting, because you are having to run a lot of new pipes, a lot of new streets, a lot of new infrastructure out that way. Kind of what we've been emphasizing is more what's called infill development. Development here already within our footprint, sort of like on the South River Street apartment complex. That's not really going to require nearly as much new piping, for instance, because the pipes are already there. I don't know that for exact evidence, but like the pipes are already there, the electric utility is already nearby. So it doesn't require that much new infrastructure. It can make use of existing infrastructure while still growing the tax base. Because I would argue where we are right now, and to be clear, we're doing a lot better than a lot of cities all across this country. But where we are right now is spread a little thin. So making use of the infrastructure foundation we have now.
But it's still upgrades and improvements,
it can
whether
be
you're
in
spread
certain
thin or
ways.
not. So either way, you're spending it and it's going in different directions where this is more of a consolidated effort. And oh, by the way, this is one location and you're not accountable to the people that are coming there necessarily to work. You got people there that are living there. They're still going to be shopping and living in your town.
Yeah.
And we have 5 of those retirement communities, just by the way.
Yeah,
Six if you count the rehab facility that's out at Main and Deer Path.
Okay.
That will probably, I don't remember what the number was, but it's quite a few employees and 96 units in it.
Right. And I think more importantly, believe it or not, we're just about built out. We have probably 468 acres left for new development, right? So I know we were used to talking about Batavia in these big, multi-decade generational terms, but the fact is we may be all sold out, to use a figure of speech, within the next 10 years. So a lot of these, and when we talk about infill development, stuff like that, we're really just spitballing at this point. We have not really gotten into this issue yet. We don't have any answers today. We probably won't for a bit, right?
Again, that's okay because that's, I guess, kind of what I'm doing on the reverse end.
No, you know what? You're going to laugh. As somebody who's been tracking this stuff for longer than I like to admit, it is very interesting. And if tonight sparks your interest, there's a whole bunch of stuff online that they can kind of look at it and get into it and then show up here all the time. I mean, we'd love having intelligent conversations. We'd love more talking to folks afterwards. It's interesting stuff.
Well, again, appreciate your time, Jerome.
Thank you.
And I'll be done in a year and a half. You can run from my seat.
There you go. Exactly.
You heard it here.
Oh, I said that last time. This is my final term. Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
So moved.
Second. Okay, motion is for Resolution 2025-128R to approve the 2026 budget, and that'll go to recommendation to go to council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Anybody? Okay. That will go to council with a positive recommendation. We will vote on that. First meeting in December will be our next council meeting. And thank you for coming. And the ones that remained and whoever left. We do appreciate that. I mean, there was years and years where we went through and we didn't have anybody show up at those meetings. And one of the problems we used to have was we had multiple committees, 7 of them, and government services what went through the budget. And we had somebody, when I first got on the council, that liked to go through line by line the entire budget. And it took, Peggy probably remembers, probably took 3 or 4 meetings to do that. And it was brutal because people were ready to fall asleep by the time we got done with it. It's in a much better format, much easier to find stuff, and much easier to explain when it's all available. So, thank you.
It's also nice knowing people are willing to listen.
Yeah.
And not just act like they're doing their job.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any project status updates?
No,
or
just
other
want to
business?
invite the community to the celebration of having been able to relocate the food pantry. That is this Friday at their new location at 916 First Street. And we are pretty excited. We're 90% sure that Congresswoman Underwood is going to be able to attend that celebration with us. It was her $3 million community project funding grant that allowed the city of Batavia to assist the pantry in this move. So super excited and just invite every member of the community who can come out to help us celebrate from 3 to 7.
Wonderful. Anybody else have any others? If not, motion for adjournment? All those in favor?